Our final speaker is Sally Ruane, who is a member of the Leicester campaign against NHS privatisation. All of you are here today. If you want to join the campaign, we'd be very grateful to have as many members as we can get.
Hello everybody, and welcome here this afternoon. It's fantastic to see so many people here welcoming the marchers, and I would like to add my congratulations to these marchers and also to those behind the scenes who have been driving the support vans and sorting out logistics and sorting out the routes, etc. As Dave mentioned, I'm a member of the campaign against NHS privatisation in Leicester, and we've been absolutely inundated with offers of support so that we can make the welcome to these marchers a warm and heartfelt one. And we are very grateful to that. The march, this People's March for the NHS, seems to have triggered a lot of acts of kindness and hospitality and generosity. And in a modest way, those shows of altruism and the pulling together and the collective endeavour that all of this represents in some way reflects the moral values that lay behind the NHS in the first place. The NHS is a service in which everybody comes together, paying together and sharing together in the service, and allocating resources according to people's need, not according to their greed or to their desire for profit. I think the challenge that we face and the challenge that a next government faces, a new government, is to convert this energy here and this determination and tenacity on the part of the marchers and all of the generosity that they hopefully are experiencing all the way down the route, to convert that into policies which will make a difference, policies which will bite. And we want policies which are different, not just in detail or tone, but policies which are different in principle and substance. We want a different government which will lead us in a different direction, away from markets, away from privatisation, and away from underfunding. We want a service which is publicly funded, publicly provided, and democratically accountable. And we need a government which recognises that Nye Bevan took the health service into the public domain for a reason. He believed that there was a fundamental clash, an incompatibility between private acquisitiveness and public service. And he believed that commercial principles are seen at their worst in the field of healthcare. As other speakers have mentioned, the coalition government introduced, with no democratic legitimacy whatsoever, legislation which resulted in the 2012 Health and Social Care Act. This rolls out market competition across almost all aspects of healthcare, and it repealed the legal duty of the Secretary of State to secure comprehensive healthcare for the people of England. That piece of legislation has gone further than any previous legislation to dismantling the NHS. And in fact, when the coalition first published their proposals, a leading light of the private sector said that they could well lead to the denationalisation of the health services in England.
Carpetbaggers.
A new government must pass, as its first act in government, an NHS reinstatement bill. This is a bill currently being drafted by academics and legal experts and is designed to eviscerate the coalition's legislation. The passing of this bill, which will remove any requirement for market competition and will restore the legal duty of the Secretary of State to give us comprehensive health care. The passing of this bill into statute must be the first act and first priority of a new government. We have the 7th largest economy in the world. We are one of the wealthiest nations and societies ever to have inhabited the earth. It should be possible in this land of plenty for people to enjoy a health service in which patients are treated promptly and expertly, and in which staff are respected, valued, listened to, and paid well. And yet what we find is a service which is deliberately kept from adequate resource, a deliberate policy of underfunding the NHS. We've been told by the government that NHS funding is protected and that it is not cutting the NHS budget. But this is slightly misleading. Experts agree that the NHS needs a 4% real terms increase in its budget each year to keep up with the growing and ageing population, this cost of new technology, and the fact that health service inflation is higher than general inflation. So we need a 4% real terms increase in funding in the NHS each year. Instead, the government has been giving the NHS a 0% real terms increase in funding. And that is one of the main reasons why the service is struggling today. So the NHS needs 4% in real terms each year. That amounts to about £6 billion for example, next year. £6 billion. It sounds a lot to you and me. But with an economy that is worth well over £1.5 trillion, I can assure you that £6 billion can be easily found. And don't believe anybody who tells you that that money cannot be found. It can be found. We are not asking for the moon. We are not asking for the impossible. We are not asking for something which is unrealistic or unreasonable. We simply want to see that the next government will commit itself to an NHS increase in funding of 4% in real terms each year. And in fact, I think it is the least we could do for our own self-respect to ask for that degree of funding to preserve the NHS for our children and our parents and our neighbours and ourselves. Because it is up to us, we who are standing here in Leicester today, to insist on the preservation of the health service. The consequences of underfunding are being felt acutely in Leicester, Leicestershire and Rutland. We are facing a 5-year plan called Better Care Together. It proposes a radical restructuring of health and social care so that as much care as possible is transferred out of hospitals and into community settings. Well, that sounds very good, doesn't it? Nobody wants to be in hospital if they don't need to be in hospital. And some good things could come out of this plan. But there are also major problems with it. It is essentially a finance-driven plan, not a quality-driven plan. Even with the best intentions, which I believe our local health leaders have, even with the best intentions, it is very difficult when you've been told you've got to save £400 million in the next 5 years to put quality first. And we, the people of Leicester, Leicestershire and Rutland, are looking at the closure of 400 beds, a massive sell-off of NHS property. That's your property, my property and our property, and the likely shift to a workforce which overall has a lower skill mix. That is to say, more of our care will be given by less skilled and cheaper staff. This is not the time or the place to go into detail, but in my view there are major causes of concern, and we local people must not allow the leaders simply to implement this plan with no real public scrutiny or real public opposition where opposition is required. So finally, I just want to thank you again for coming here. I want to thank everybody who has contributed to making these marches welcome. And I want to thank the marchers themselves for their inspiration and their imagination and for their faithfulness to the National Health Service. Thank you.